Hello and welcome to Robbie and James Talk Music, the podcast where Robbie and James talk music. We're your hosts, Robbie Maxted, a creative writing professor,
and James Wicks, a professor of media and film studies.
This week's episode is a concert feature episode. Do you want to talk about the concert, James?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll be talking today about the Jonestown Massacre. I had a chance to see them live at the Music Box on October 31st. It was Halloween. There was a costume of someone dressed up as Jesus at the show. And that, among other fun costumes, made it an event that was memorable for that reason alone. But the music itself is U.S. tradition, psychedelic rock. It's fantastic, and happy to elaborate on it today and experience it with you.
Cool. I was trick-or-treating with my kids, not at this concert. So I had actually never listened to Jonestown Massacre except for the song that I'll be playing today for this episode, which I've heard not like a ton before, but like it's in my rotation, I think.
Yeah, it's an awesome song, and your point was well made, Robbie, that you don't listen to this band because you said Jamestown Massacre, but that might have been an homage to me, but we're listening to Jonestown Massacre, and I love the song you're about to play. Actually, we played it once on the pod back in the day, and I'm glad it came back. Can you get us started with your track?
Yeah, this is Anemone by the Jonestown Massacre.
So, Robbie, this song is the Jonestown Massacre's most famous track, and for good reason. I love this way that a song can combine so many musical elements that I enjoy. There's, once again, shoegaze, a recurrent theme,
Sure.
But garage rock, psychedelic rock, neo-psychedelia, folk rock, and all these elements really come together here. What stands out to you with this track?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just slow and has a great sound to it. I know you played this before on the pod, and it stuck with me as a track that I like. I also think it stands out. It makes sense that it's their most famous track. I listened to the album that it's on, their Satanic Majesty's Second Request, which is it from 2008. It's a great album. I liked the other tracks that accompany it, but this one for sure stands out from that album.
Yeah.
And I think that the pacing and that consistent return to the lines, "You should be picking me up, instead you're dragging me down," just is a great vibe across the track.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the brilliance of this song specifically, and psychedelic rock in general, is the way that the snare always feels like it's delayed. Like you're just waiting, like there's a tension for the snare to finally hit. It's as if it's still in time, but it's at the very latest possible moment you get the snare. So there's just this tension as the song unrolls and unravels. The first track that they played, I need to go back to Setlist FM or some other way of finding out what song it was, because I wasn't sure what song they opened with, but I felt like if I get to make it to heaven, it's going to be my walk-in track. It was like the best. It just washed over me. And they saved this track that you played towards the end of the show because everyone's expecting it. And they played it slower than actually the studio recording, which made that tension in its delivery even more pronounced. As we're thinking through these tracks in terms of, in your case, essay writing, and in my case, film,
Yeah.
a number of films come to mind. The one I'd like to highlight right here is a rock documentary about the band called Dig that came out in 2004, and it won a Sundance Film Award the year it was released. The documentary Dig, which I highly recommend, is half on the emergence of Jonestown Massacre in the 1990s, as well as the Dandy Warhols, which are from Portland. And the documentary shows the rise and fall and various trajectories of both these bands. It's so engaging. The Guardian has written it in this way: Dig looks at art versus commerce, friendship, collaboration, and madness through the eyes of two lead singers who each possess what the other has not. Anton, who's the lead singer, Anton Newcomb, the lead singer of Brian Jonestown Massacre, can live on the edge and make records for the price of a six-pack of beer. Courtney, the lead singer of Dandy Warhols, a band I also really enjoy, needs stability. The filmmaker writes, I filmed the Jonestowns in Super 8 and the Dandies in 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter because they made it commercially. It made for a contrast. I wanted the footage to reflect their diverging fortunes. So really highly recommended music documentary for folks interested in the sound and just an entertaining movie in its own right.
Yeah, that's fascinating that it's like, I mean, I feel like the traditional documentary would just be like about one band.
Right.
So it's fascinating to do two,
Yeah.
mash them together, and then also do it in a different way of filming.
Yeah,
It's really cool.
yeah, for sure. The lead singer of Brian Jonestown Massacre was just such an entertaining and powerful presence. It was almost undoubted that they would have stardom and rise to fame. And he actually recommended that the Dandy Warhols be featured as well because he saw the same kind of trajectory for that band. But along the way, they went really different routes. And so it makes for an entertaining watch. And I would also say that, I just think it's cool to follow a band for so long who are still at the height of their musical talents. And to me, as someone who enjoys psychedelic rock from the 60s, I enjoy what Brian Jonestown Massacre is producing now more than what was produced historically. So it's just been really cool to be able to follow them. So, all right, everybody, we are recording again one day later. So there was an interruption between the previous section and what we're saying now. So in case there's any inconsistencies, that's the reason. But we're going to keep going to finish off this podcast.
Yeah, what track do you have for us, James?
I'm going to play the song Pish by Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Great song today, James. I thought it was funny because we chose these songs independently of each other, but there's like such a parallel with the lyrics. In mine, shouldn't be picking me up, instead you're dragging me down. And then this track is don't bring me down, don't make me fall, I'm way up here. So it's interesting sort of positionality within the lyrics of like the speaker singer being up somewhere, not wanting to get dragged down. But then also like looking down or looking back at somebody.
Yeah, definitely same sentiment, different angle, different approach to it. I think that one aspect of this song that attracts me is it has the 1960s sound. And I've maybe said it earlier today, and I've certainly said it in the past, but I am convinced that the music that's being produced right now is far superior to anything that's come before us. And I love nostalgia, and I think nostalgia is a positive emotion. I think that if we're experiencing that emotion and recollection, we should lean into it. I think it's great. But at the same time, I do think that music's getting better and better. And I love to hear this 1960s sound rearticulated with today's sensibility. And I'm just so enthusiastic to hear anyone who's revisiting, like right now, there's so many bands that are kind of doing the 1990s sound, but the music now is way better than it was then. And I just love that, being alive in this moment and just anticipating all the new sounds that are coming out right now. So, and include Pish on that list. And I know you're going to move to discussing your essay. And how did the essay overlap with the Brian Jonestown Massacre vibe and sound? What was it that leads you to the essay that you're going to share with us today?
Yeah, this essay was published November 6th, 2025 in The Atlantic. It's titled The Missing Kayaker, What Happened to Ryan Borgwart. It's written by Jamie Thompson, who's a staff writer for The Atlantic. Selected it because I was thinking of my song, but I think it also parallels with your song, essentially about this guy, and it's spoiled pretty early in the essay, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything by saying it. A guy who fakes his death by kayaking out onto a lake and then just disappearing. And prior to doing that, was in like what appeared to be a pretty happy relationship, a wife and two kids, in Wisconsin. And then, like in talking with the detectives and stuff, the wife was like, no, like he for sure like died out on the lake. Like he never would have just disappeared. And so the whole essay is this investigation into somebody who people think they knew, but then actually didn't. And then the shock of finding out that like this guy is living somewhere else and had this whole second life that he'd crafted for himself. It's fascinating. It does a really good job of following characters on the detective side of things. It follows the guy who like scopes the lake just again and again, trying to find a body and then can't find it, and is like convinced that he's not in the lake, even though the authorities are like, no, he's got to be there, and even the wife is like, he's got to be there. And so yeah, I was thinking that thematically it fits to this idea in both songs of being dragged down or surprised by something that is unknown, and that idea of like wanting to move forward and keep that forward momentum that's in both songs is, I think, contrasted by what goes on in this essay. But I was fascinated by it. I love true crime. Do you read or watch much true crime?
I don't too much. I think that I enjoy documentaries, and especially the true crime documentaries on Netflix. If they're in the top 10 and it's a holiday, like I'll definitely check them out there. I don't think I read them those as much as you do.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the best true crime that I have read usually does that move where it characterizes somebody in the story really well, whether it's the person who perpetuates the crime or the people who are trying to solve the crime. There's always like a character at the heart of it. And that's what I find interesting, is watching how people navigate some aspect of the story.
Yeah, that's so cool. And it's interesting to hear you talk about character. What strikes me and what you're describing and its correlation with the music is emotion. And I feel like in human experience, it's calculable. Like we have so many different experiences as people, but they're not infinite. And to think, I think, in other words, all of us have thought at one point in our life, what if I disappeared? What would that be like? We all have that thought, right? Because it's within our human range of experience. What's fascinating about these kind of stories is that someone took that idea and ran with it. And so it's not sort of necessarily surprising that someone would have that emotion, because we all do, I think, but that someone totally goes overboard and sees it to its logical or illogical conclusion. And just as we have a range of experience, and that's one of them that some people like totally pursue, similarly, we have the full range of emotions. And Brian Jonestown Massacre has tapped into one of those emotions that's not the same as LL Cool J. It's not the same as Taylor Swift. It's its own emotion, and they pursue it. And so I think, to me, that's one way of thinking through these two concepts. And I'm wondering if there's a correlation between escape, as you located in this article,
Yep.
or disappearing, to be more clear, and the emotion that Brian Jonestown Massacre is feeling. I wonder if we put thoughts and emotions on some kind of grid where they correlate and what their parameters are and what makes us think of them. But that might be for a future conversation.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's also fascinating to me in the essay, which it's not a large focus of it, but like the how of disappearing. Like, yeah, the authorities thought like, no way he disappeared. But then he had this like whole game plan of how to do it that he executed like perfectly. Wow, no flaws to be able to disappear. But then obviously they like find where he is, share it all out. So it did have some flaws, but for a while, yeah, he had everybody duped. I do love this band. Thanks for introducing them to me. Hopefully we get to see them live at some point together in the future. That'd be a blast.
So, Robbie, thanks for the experience today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks to our listeners, as always. And thanks for checking us out.
All right. And I'll be producing this one, so that's coming in the book soon.
All right. Thanks to our producer, James Wicks.
Yep. Here we go.